Hey everybody, it's Mr. Otters, and I wanted to go through the test. And so we'll talk about this first question in the next video, but let's go through this guy. So the first question, what are the 7 characteristics of living things? We had 7 things we talked about in class, 7 different ideas that we used as basically base points to figure out if something is living or not living. And they were cells, homeostasis, reproduction, heredity, metabolism, interactions, and evolution. And those 7, you need to have all 7 of those to be a living thing. Now, when we Google answers, they will come up with different ones because different textbooks have different answers. But we're going to go with what's in my class. It's what we used in our notes. It's what we talked about. It's what we used in assignments. Pick 3 of the characteristics. So you have to pick 3 of them and explain what they are. You could have picked any 3. A lot of you guys pick things like reproduction and genetics and evolution. That's fine, fantastic. Cells is kind of a hard one to explain. It's just they make up all living things. So it depends on which one you guys chose. I can't really give you a detailed answer there. This question, you have to find 3 characteristics to talk about if it was living or non-living. You had to tell me if it was a condition for living or non-living as well. That's what this part meant. So looking at this, a gel-like substance placed in a glass dish on top of a heat plate turned on low. The substance at first does not move. You add 5 drops of water and wait 2 minutes. All of a sudden, the substance begins to move around the glass dish. So it's interacting, you could say, with the heat or water. That could be positive. You're not touching the heat plate, the glass dish, or the gel, but it's definitely moving around the dish. At times, the gel-like substance seems to divide into smaller blobs that look identical of each other. You could say that's reproduction, or you could say that's just randomly happening. You could also maybe make an argument here that that's heredity or DNA. It seems to be eating smaller items in the bottom of the container, and every time you reduce the temperature, it tries to maintain a high temperature itself. So this is definitely homeostasis, is trying to keep something. It looks like it's eating something. That would be metabolism. So things we really haven't seen. We haven't seen cells. We haven't seen, realistically, we still haven't seen heredity. We really don't know if there's DNA going on or not. But we've seen some other ones here. So you just had to pick out 3 and tell me if it was a living or non-living thing. There are plenty of examples of our body keeping homeostasis. Some of them are more apparent than others. One of them is keeping a consistent body temperature and your body's method of keeping that temperature. Think through how your body reacts to being out in the cold. What kind of feedback is in the body what kind of feedback is the body in if you're trying to maintain a temperature in a cold environment? Some of you guys talked here about what it's like to be cold, which would be like similar to the next question. Some of you guys went way off base. The answer here would just be negative feedback. What kind of feedback? There's 2 kinds of feedback. There's negative and positive feedback in homeostasis. This is something we talked about the first and second week of class. Based on some answers, some of us forgot about this. So negative feedback, if you go back and watch the lesson, it is like a valley. We're trying to keep the ball in the middle of the bowl, and everything is trying to keep everything normal. So if the temperature goes a little out of whack, you start doing things to bring it back to normal. And that goes along with not just temperature, it goes along with almost everything in your body. You're always trying to keep a balance. You're always trying to keep it normal. That's negative feedback. List 3 responses. Your body's cold. As long as you listed 3 responses and they were really like kind of decent, I let it go. This was just kind of an easy way to give you 1.5 points. Explain why positive feedback is less common than negative feedback. Positive feedback is taking things to the extreme. Now, a couple of you guys put it makes things wrong or like negative things, but like it's not always a negative thing for positive feedback. Like childbirth is not a negative thing. Now, it does take the body to the extreme, though. It takes it out of the normal situation, and it wants to produce non-normal situations. I think in the notes I said it makes things go out of whack. Okay, so positive feedback is trying to create non-normal situations. Negative feedback is trying to keep a balance, and living things need a balance. It needs homeostasis. So negative feedback is the most common one. Give 2 examples of positive feedback. Childbirth was one. Breastfeeding is another. Near-death experiences, adrenaline rushes, another one. Some of you guys pulled some answers from left field, or I guess blood clotting was one we talked about too on the notes. But some of you guys pulled some other random ones, like fruit ripening and flower production and stuff like that, which are true, but we didn't talk about in our class. Give the 7 levels of taxonomy from largest to smallest. So going from largest to smallest, we got kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. What is the genus species of humans? It is Homo sapiens. The genus is Homo. The species is sapiens. How many derived characteristics and traits represent a diagram above? Okay, how many traits are there? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Which animals have claws or nails? Well, it's everybody above this line. So it's lizard, pigeon, mouse, chimp. Which 2 animals are most closely related to each other based on this cladogram? Explain why. So looking here, all of these guys have a different trait in between them on the cladogram. So we're basing this on the cladogram, not real life. Based on the cladogram, it says here. So we talked about in cladograms that is, if you have no differences between you, you're most related. The most related is mouse and chimp. There's no differences between them. They're both have jaws, lungs, claws, or nails, feathers, fur, and mammary glands. Everybody else has 1 or 2 differences between the next person over. Write out 4 pressures that cause natural selection, evolution, organisms. We did a pretty good job of pulling environment, predators, prey, and food and resources. Some of us forgot reproduction. That's the 4th one. That one was the one that wasn't really in the lab, but we talked a little bit about. Natural selection in a nutshell, this picture here. This is a multifaceted answer that you kind of needed. And before I grade any test, I think to myself, exactly what do I want them to have? Some of you guys wrote a lot, but you just missed a certain section of the answer that I was looking for. And some of you guys put very little, but hit the certain thing I was looking for. So what I was trying to get to was that the green beetles population will go down. The orange population will go up because the orange population is not getting eaten, and therefore they're going to reproduce. You had to have some kind of thing about the orange population now being the dominant trait and going to reproduce and grow in number. You couldn't just tell me the green one was going to get smaller and the orange was going to become more dominant, or orange was the winner. You had to say that it had to reproduce in some way and grow. Now, I will also like to just clarify, because a couple of your guys' answers worried me a little bit. Like, the beetles can't choose to be green or orange. Like, this beetle can't be like, oh, it looks like the orange ones are winning, let me turn to be orange. Just like you can't change your eye color. So we got to be careful of saying that the beetles choose then to evolve into something else. You don't choose to evolve. You didn't choose the way you were. That is based on biology and reproduction and heredity. And so the orange beetles are more likely to produce orange beetles. They didn't choose to be orange. And there could be a scenario where orange becomes less favorable. So just to make sure that we know that evolution is not a choice. You don't get to choose what you are. What is artificial selection? Give an example. Artificial selection is when humans are the selecting factor in a situation for a living thing's evolution. Give an example. Well, you can give the most common one that was given was dogs. There was bananas. We talked about that. Some of you guys put some other animals and things. It really is anything that humans touch. We kind of choose who wins. Explain how bacteria are getting more resistant to antibiotics. We use antibiotics and they kill bacteria for the most part, and then they leave a couple behind and our body kind of kills them. But what's been happening is we've been using antibiotics so much that some resistant bacteria are living through the process and they're reproducing and passing on their traits, and they're producing new generations of antibiotic resistant microbes. And so therefore things are getting more and more resistant to our antibiotics. So I was kind of looking for the idea that there is a winner and loser, and it was an accidental thing, and that these guys now are passing on their genes of immunity to the next generation. All right. Tell me if the characteristic is for prokaryotic cells, eukaryotic cells, or both. Having no nucleus, that's prokaryotic cells. Having DNA, both of them have DNA. Having membrane-bound organelles, that's a eukaryotic cell thing. Anything that makes a cell more advanced is going to be eukaryotic. Having a cell membrane, that's just the outer membrane that keeps the cell together. That's both. Being the cell type of bacteria, that's prokaryotic, and being the cell type of humans, that's eukaryotic. Create a hypothesis for the following question. I really didn't care what you wrote down as the actual legit hypothesis. I was looking for the hypothesis structure that we learned in class, and then we practiced worksheets and other quizzes, and that was if, then, because. So your hypothesis had to have if this happens, then this happens because of this. Moving into the next guy, Billy and Bob want perfect, or want, well, that was really poor English, I guess. Billy and Bob want perfect their rocket fuel formula. Ooh. They have a standard formula from online they want to test, but they really want to know if the amount of baking soda added to the vinegar will affect the height of the rocket launch. They will measure the baking soda in millimeters. They will measure the height of the rocket in meters, the rocket launch. So hypothesis, again, you need if, then, because. I don't care what you say. You could be wrong. Independent. Yeah, independent is the thing that they are changing. And so they're changing the formula of baking soda and vinegar. Dependent is how high then the rocket is going. Remember, you're always measuring the dependent, and they're measuring it in meters here, how high it's going. And the control is the online standard formula. So they're going to test it against that. So that's the four there. And then if I study for the biology test, then my test score will improve because I know the material better. So that's a good hypothesis because it has the if, then, because. Anyways, the independent variable and dependent variable. So if you remember from the notes and stuff back in the day, I said that the if is always the independent, the then is always the dependent. So right there should tell you studying more for biology tests is independent. Dependent is test score. The other idea here is you think about what you change. Well, I change how much I study, and that will affect the test score or what it's being measured. The test score is being measured. Okay. You can't really you guys can't directly affect your test score. You have to do something to affect it. So independent, dependent. So that's it. Hope it went well. If you have any questions, let me know. If you would like to retake it, you need to give me 48 hours in advance so I can get everything set up. And I hope that you're proud of the work you did. And I'll talk to you guys later.